Hello everyone, and welcome to Spooky Theory Day while I play an unrelated game that I'm probably much better at. Today I'm going to be talking about Five Nights at Freddy's, specifically one piece of in-game stuff where I don't think that the community has discussed much, and how it can impact the narrative and a rough timeline to go along with it to, I guess, as an example of how the story can be impacted by this. Specifically, the piece of data from the games that I want to talk about is the voice actor Andy Field, who in Sister Location voices Hand Unit, and in Pizzeria Simulator, officially dubbed on IMDb as Tutorial Unit, but probably well recognized as the narrator of the ending cutscenes. And this is important because as I try and play Celeste live while discussing this, that character has a lot of narrative implications for Michael, especially if the bad ending routes are followed, like being stuck in a sanitarium, so this character has physical power in the world of the game. So I think it's more to say that they're more than just a tutorial character, and considering that we even gave character significance to like Phone Dude from Five Nights 3, that I think it's important to discuss the potential of that character, and also because due to the Scott's attention to detail and consistency in terms of like even just text colors from the original games to more modern consistency, such as Heather Masters being voice acting Circus Baby in both Pizzeria Simulator and Sister Location. The consistency between Hand Unit and this narrator is not something to be understated, because especially depending on where you put Sister Location in the timeline, this has been whomever this character is, who is making the recordings for Hand Unit and participating in the events of Pizzeria Simulator, has been with the company for a long time. So my theory is, or I guess my bit of lore to consider, is that this person is in fact the missing third business partner and the founder, and well, not necessarily the founder, but the president and CEO of Fazbear Entertainment, and lifting a name from the novels, we'll call this person James Burrows, or Jim. Now, narratively, what does this allow us to do? This actually, in my opinion, helps make all the character motivations a lot cleaner. Henry is always the honorable, grieving father who always has his integrity. William is the disingenuous, grieving father who goes on to become a serial murderer. And then we have Jim, who is the scheming and cost-cutting business person who keeps Fazbear Entertainment running the whole time. And this is important because if we would Henry, being the honorable character we want him to be at the end of Pizzeria Simulator, dying with his daughter, would that person keep Freddy Fazbear's open so that more children get murdered? No. We need someone who is less caring in order to fulfill that role and make it still narratively satisfying to why Henry would sacrifice himself at the end. And also what's funny is Jim not sacrificing himself at the end and living to see another day. Now, what does this mean in terms of the specifics? Well, as I try not to die to battle in here, yeah, an intense platformer was a great way to do this. But truly, what we are looking for is now we have someone who is motivated to keep the restaurants open during all of this, and allow Henry time to leave and grieve for his daughter Charlie when after she gets murdered. And as soon as I have a moment to flip this over, I have an approximate timeline that I would like to share, and it is not specific in that I'm thinking that it gets every detail right, but what it does is it takes the idea of having this third business partner and what it could mean in terms of story beats for the franchise. Yeah, and if you can't tell, I'm just a tad rusty from when I made the speedrun videos earlier. So, the start of the timeline is William Afton opens Fredbear's family diner to modest success. And now, along come our two competitors. Henry, who is our robotics expert, and Jim Burrows, the business expert. And for the purposes of entertainment and also a little bit of additional stuff, we are going to assume that Jim, president and CEO of Fazbear Entertainment, is Cassidy's father as well. And thus, Five Nights at Freddy's becomes a tale of three dads. So, Jim, realizing the success of Fredbear's Family Diner, makes the knockoff version, Chica's Party World, with the original character from Henry, Chica, and our other copyright protected, totally original, do not steal characters like Ned Bear. And through the competition, rather than one or the other giving up, Jim proposes a merger, and thus Fazbear Entertainment, which combines Chica's Party World and the Fredbear Family Diner together, becomes Fazbear Entertainment, and we get the cast of Freddy, Foxy, Chica, and Bonnie. Now, after this merger, we move ahead a few years to the towards the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 in the timeline. So, first we're going to go before the events of the game happen. We follow the crying child, who witnesses to, I suggest, multiple Springlock failures referenced in the sister location the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 audio tapes. Now, and I would like to say that my wife thought of this being, the multiple Springlock failures are the employees who then later become Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. And this, that part is what I think are really good. And then that explains why William is telling his son, hey, remember what you saw, stay away from the animatronics, and is using the Fredbear plush in order to communicate with him, and also to keep quiet about it. And why there isn't mass public outrage is my contribution to this is this springlock failure happened in an employees only area. Whether or not the two employees spilled coffee on each other, or if we're assuming Jim is a cheap cost-cutting businessman, maybe just didn't maintain the employee area all that well in terms of the building, and there just so happened to be a little bit of a leak in the roof that hit both employees, and the poor child saw both employees get sprung. He would be very, very afraid of the animatronics, especially the springlock suits designed by his father, William. And thus William says, remember what you saw, stay away from them. And now no other children have been killed yet. And then the poor kid gets sprung, or animatronic malfunctioned on, when Michael puts him into the mouth of the Fredbear suit at the Five Nights 4 location. Here, William, having noticed the presence of Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie, knowing that there's something happening, that there is some evidence of supernatural and that the dead can possess things, William falls down the dark path of becoming a serial murderer of children because he thinks that he can use the souls of by studying the souls of the dead, he can bring his son back to life. Or at this point, I'm thinking that the crying child is more just in a comatose state rather than truly dead. And William starts getting the ideas for the not the fun time animatronics, but the animatronics at Circus Baby's Pizzeria, and he describes these to his son, who is in a coma, hence he has nightmares about animatronics with mouths on their stomachs. And now William begins to murder children, and starts beginning down on his dark path as the villain of the story. Now, simultaneously, William also makes Afton Robotics, potentially very much funded by, separate but still funded by Jim Burrows, and he makes Circus Baby, and Circus Baby inadvertently then kills Elizabeth, despite William's efforts on trying to keep her separate from all of the and I just went entirely into the wrong room. But yeah, so then Elizabeth accidentally dies because she is scooped up by Circus Baby. And then I'm going to, and this is a little bit more at liberty, Henry, realizing more of what's going on than Jim, proposes that William is a liability to the company, and then is ousted by Jim. And being very upset by this fact, William then goes on to exact his revenge by murdering the children of his business partners, being Cassidy, the daughter of Jim, there's no evidence for this other than me having a very grand assumption, and Charlie. And with Cassidy and with And knowing that William is very much dangerous, before Charlie was killed, Henry made the security puppet because he knew that William was designing animatronics that target children. And that follows the timeline relatively well. And now, after being ousted from the company and exacting his revenge, Henry becomes very much just the grieving father and steps back from the company. However, Jim is still there, wanting to make a profit, and using Henry's technology from the security puppet, designs the toy animatronics that we see in hires someone to design the toy animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and then overpromises and undersells of their security capabilities. And at this point, still wanting to reanimate his son, but very delusional, William basically infiltrates the company under a false name to continue murdering children as the daytime security guard at our Five Nights at Freddy's 2 location. And why you ask he's able to do this is that the main people of the companies, Jim, is, as evidenced by the phone guy conversations, is dealing with a lawsuit at the time of the game, whether or not it's related to the child murderers or not. But with there being multiple locations and this ongoing lawsuit, it stands to be logical that Jim might not know that William has infiltrated the company as a daytime security guard with the goal of murdering more children. And with Henry gone from the company, no one else is there during the day-to-day operations to see that William is there causing problems. Now, along comes day 5, where someone used the yellow suit, being William, to murder children. They don't know who did it or what exactly happened. They just know the animatronics went haywire, and I missed one of the things. The animatronics went haywire. Jim blames the daytime security guard because liability, fires the daytime security guard, who he does not know is William, on the spot, and they need to find the replacement. And in order to find the replacement, but not knowing that it was William who was already there, Jim calls the former owner, and also knowing that the murders happened while William wasn't present, kind of clearing his name, and someone needs to fix the animatronics, and Henry is not in the picture, that Jim calls up his old pal William to bury the hatchet, fix the animatronics, and keep the business going and being profitable. While simultaneously here, they are prepping the Five Nights 1 location for reopening. However, the building has fallen into disrepair because they didn't maintain it because it wasn't open. Trying to remember the strategy for this room. And thus, probably under a false name, William has Michael take the position for the last night, and after the restaurant just closes because of the bite of 87, Michael's just immediately fired. However, William is still himself in good standing with Jim at this moment, because Jim doesn't realize that William has murdered his daughter, and thus William is in charge of moving the animatronics from the Five Nights 2 location to the Five Nights 1 location and refurbishing them. And then once refurbished, then they would reopen the restaurant and everything would be going as normal. However, that is very clearly not the case, as evidenced by, well, the later the events of Five Nights 1 happening. So here in what I theorize is William, during the moving process, disassembling the animatronics for refurbishing them in the old dilapidated location, is startled by the ghosts of the children. He goes to hide in the springlock suit that has been stored in the back room, and thus gets sprung. And now, I guess, to go along with the multiple simultaneous springlock failures and the potential of like what's going on from in the Five Nights 3 tapes, with the first springlock failures in the employee area, they probably could have closed down the employee areas for a little while, and since the Five Nights 1 location was under repair and being remade, it goes to stand that the back rooms at that time were open and known by William, so he could go in and access the springlock suit. And again, part of why Henry would say, for going back a little bit, of Henry ousting him from the company, is that both the springlock suits and Circus Baby are very deadly. So they decided to keep William out of the company for, well, Jim wants William out of the company for liability reasons. But now we have William has been sprung, and then, having not heard from his business partner in a few days, Jim decides to go to the Five Nights 1 location, see what's going on, and he finds William, well, dead in the back room, and thus realizing that William was the one who murdered his daughter and all the other children in an act of spite, rather than being the honorable Henry, seals William to anonymity in the back room to suffer the fate brought upon by himself, and also maintain profitability because no one knows that there is a serial murderer who still happens to be in the wall of the back room of the company. And thus we move on to the events of Five Nights 1, where poor phone guy gets sprung and Michael is searching for his missing father. And actually, phone guy doesn't get sprung. Phone guy just gets killed and stuffed into a suit, and is very likely the one who is causing the suits to stink at the end. And Michael, again, just gets blamed because that's the easy thing to do, because why would you have to pay any lawsuit stuff if you blamed the employee for tampering with the suits and making them smell, rather than taking any accountability yourself, Jim? And now we move on to sister location, which is important because Michael is not scooped at this point in my timeline, and this is and he's just working under false names, potentially as his dad did, either from apple not falling from the tree, or his dad in Five Nights 2 told him to use a false name to not arouse suspicion, and that he was to say that he was still in the business and knew good mechanics. Now, Michael, looking for his dad, gets hired by Jim, who knows at this point that the animatronics are very deadly, but doesn't care that he's getting the technicians killed so long as he can turn a profit. And with dead technicians not telling any tales of security hazards, he sends Michael into the sister location bunker, and hence is the voice of his first appearance as Hand Unit in the games. And then the events of sister location occur, where Michael gets scooped and then begins the search for his now undead father, and we follow along to Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and kind of just follow like the main franchise events as more commonly known by the games from there. And why Jim has opened sister location while been doing the rentals is from, we know that at the end of Five Nights 1 that Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is no longer very profitable. So Jim could have very easily reopened the sister location for Afton Robotics, and as a means of keeping the profits going while he sells the pizzeria to Fazbear Fright to lure on a profit. And now, with chaos reigning, we jump back to having Henry in the picture. Now, once Henry realizes what is going on, and that one of his colleagues is now an undead zombie going around trying to murder children while sprung in a bunny suit, and knowing that his daughter is out there and in need of help, Henry comes up with a plan to open a new restaurant, lure in everyone, and finish off the narrative once and for all. And through any thoughts of honor or just the threat of lawsuit, Henry convinces Jim to go along with this, and they open the pizzeria simulator. Yeah, now as the platforming gets harder, my timeline starts to fall to pieces, but we do have motivation for Jim to fund the franchise location. And since Jim is not the one who is burning alive, he can be there afterwards telling us what is going on in the story. Right here, I need to do that. And thus, and then after everyone gets burned, Jim, who is spiteful, petty, and doesn't super care about people all of that much, keeps William in effectively limbo by having told his daughter she was the one William should not have killed. And so with Jim and his daughter's spite, they keep William in effectively purgatory for ultimate custom night, while Henry and all of the other children are off in a better place. And I think that is really a clean narrative for where the franchise can go, because if you have Jim, that allows Henry to effectively be freed of the sins of continuing the franchise. Because if you have Henry be the business owner, the narrative hole is, why didn't Henry act sooner, knowing that William was murdered so many children? Where if Henry is out of the picture, whether from grief or there's a potential offshoot there where Henry was blamed for the first murders and is in jail, then it allows Jim to keep opening new restaurants and William to keep, well, to keep up with his antics effectively, and in doing so, continue harming more children. So I think in doing this, we keep the core values of all of the characters intact by letting Jim be an acting character rather than it just be Henry and William. Yeah, and that is my very rough, hopefully narratively satisfying timeline of the events of Five Nights at Freddy's if we allow for a third business partner. And again, I think the major calling point of this video is the consideration of the character Andrew Field is playing in both Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, because of all of the very with the obsession of consistency that is present in the franchise, from text colors and everything else. And I think that is really the most important point, and just considering him as the other business partner allows us to, well, just have a lot more fun and flexibility with what's going on in the narrative. So thank you all for watching. I hope you are enjoying the spooky season, and I will catch you in some more Halloween spooky themed stuff that I'll be working on. Probably something Elden Ring related, but hey, that will come when it does. Thank you all again for this fun offshoot of talking about one game while playing another. Have a great day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. See ya!